Hello and welcome to The Paradigm Shift, Conquering Fear and Aligning to the Awakening. I'm Saenz, your host, and with me this segment is Janet Pfeiffer. Welcome, Janet.
Hi, Mia. It's so nice to be with you today.
It's wonderful to have you here. You're quite a ray of light, so I'm grateful that you joined us. Thank you. So I would like to ask you a real big question that most people who are watching for this reason want to know. How do you let go of fear?
Well, you know what, that's a really, really good question. And I was raised in a family that worried about everything. They were afraid about the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that doesn't happen? You know, they were always projecting the worst. So I grew up thinking that was a normal way of living. And then I realized that it was really very draining, and all of the things that I worried about weren't coming to pass anyhow. So it seemed to me that it was just a waste of time and energy. But really what caused me to have this major shift in my life was developing my relationship with God. The closer I became to God and the more faith and trust I put in Him, the more I was able to release that fear. I realized that bad things were going to continue to happen in my life as they happen in everybody's lives. But knowing that God would always provide for me everything that I needed to not only handle that situation and to get through it, but to actually benefit as a result of it, I was able to alleviate probably about 98% of my fear.
That's wonderful. Oftentimes I start out these segments and any of my interviews with asking people to share their life story and how they got to where they are so that people can understand the process. And I jumped right into your question because it was great. Would you like to share your story and how you got to this beautiful space that you're in?
Well, thank you for asking, and I'll keep a very long story very short. My spiritual journey really began probably about 30 years ago. I had married my high school sweetheart after I graduated from college. We had 4 children together, and then after 13 years of marriage, he decided to leave unexpectedly. And so at that moment, I remember distinctly the day that he left, I just instinctively turned to God. I said, I can't get through this without you. I don't know what to do. I am totally lost. And that really began a deeper understanding and awareness of who God is and the role that He played in my life. But the next 10 years, I literally went from one nightmare into another. I developed an eating disorder. I was blackmailed. I became involved in a domestic violence relationship. I went through a 10-year estrangement from 3 of my children. And in each of those situations, what happened was I learned to let go of the people and the events in my life and really just concentrate on my relationship with God. And that really is what has brought me to where I am now, that I enjoy what's around me. I'm not attached to it. I don't worry about the what ifs. What if this happens? What if this goes wrong? What if my kids are not in my life again? I don't worry about any of that because literally everything that I need, I now get from God. So I can live my life very peacefully. I can enjoy everything that's here. And when something comes up, I deal with it and I just let it go.
Wonderful. And also when we do align ourselves with the divine, to God, it brings such not just inner peace, but our vibration is raised, and so our whole system changes, our whole experience, our relationships with our children, with our friends, with our family, not just with ourselves, but that's the primary one that changes. It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful, isn't it?
It is, and you know what? I always think of the people that I most enjoy being around are the people who are the most spiritual, the ones who truly radiate that inner glow and that peace and that serenity. I love being around people like that. And so when you become that kind of a person, people are automatically attracted to you. And I'll very often get people who say to me, oh, there's something about you. It's like they can't quite put their finger on it, you know? And I know what it is. It's because I don't have anger, I don't have bitterness or resentment or jealousies or stress. I mean, I have a very stressful life, but the stress doesn't overpower me.
Right.
So for the most part, I'm a very calm, relaxed, easygoing person, and people enjoy being around people like that.
Exactly. I love to hear it, I guess because spirituality is the separation from church is becoming more prevalent in our society. It's the growth part of the awakening. And I was out at lunch with a new friend from Facebook that my husband and I had been friends with for a couple years, and we're like, yes, let's finally meet. And the first thing he said when he looked at my husband was, "You are the most spiritual man I've ever met." I mean, it was just beautiful to see somebody jump forward and claim that. I often have people say, and I'm sure you do too, what is that light about you? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to be in the realm. And it
certainly is. There's no better place in the world to be. And
exactly.
And the more connected you are spiritually, the more you can sense the disconnect with others. Like I can immediately pick up on their energy and I feel very uncomfortable around it. And yet I know that I need to be a part of their lives sometimes, maybe in a way that can just kind of open their hearts to, a new way of living.
Right. That's part of the gift that we can give to them. It's beautiful. Thank you. You are an author. And
yes,
so,
among other things.
Exactly. And so you have a new book, The Great Truth. Would you please talk about the 3 defining experiences in your book, the moments that are very powerful?
Yes. Dr. Phil, in the first book he wrote, I think it's Family Matters, talked about defining moments that we have in our life. And I think there's something like 10 of them. I can distinctly remember 3, and I talk about them in The Great Truth. The first defining moment, and these are moments that literally change who you are as a person. The first defining moment that I had occurred 31 years ago. Like I had mentioned to you, my husband abruptly left our marriage. And I had 4 young children at the time, one of whom had very serious medical problems and was undergoing multiple surgeries. And so I felt overwhelmed by all of this, the loss of my husband, the surgeries with my son, and the responsibilities of raising 4 kids on my own. And about 6 weeks into the separation, I woke up one morning and I was sitting on the edge of my bed and I couldn't stand up. I felt so weak that I knew that if I tried to put my feet on the floor, that they were going to slide out from under me. And I sat there and I said to God, I can't do this. I just can't handle this. And in that exact moment, there was a presence that filled the entire room, from wall to wall, from floor to ceiling. It permeated every inch of space in my bedroom. And I felt these arms envelop me, and I could feel this voice saying to me, "But why are you so afraid? I'm right here, and I will never allow anything to happen to you." And I felt the most intense, incredible, pure love that I have ever felt in my life. There are not words that could describe something of that magnitude. And in that moment, and it only lasted for a moment, and then the presence was gone, and I felt all the fear and the anguish just drain from my body, and I felt this surge of energy, and I said to myself, I'm okay. I'm perfectly okay. And so that 60 seconds in the presence of God literally changes who you are, because you know unconditional love. For the first time in your life, you truly know who God is.
And you want more, so you...
Oh, you crave it.
Yeah.
You crave it.
So you change your life in order to be in that presence more often, to feel it. Because we now, once we experience that and know what it is, we can bring it up in our daily life, in our moment-by-moment life. When we're feeling in a down, negative manner, we can always go back to the place of the divine and bring it back up within us.
Yep, absolutely.
It's a beautiful, it's a well, it's a limitless well.
Yeah. What it is. And when you experience that kind of love, you have a greater understanding of how to love others. Because I've been able to apply that in my marriage. I'm now married 17 years to my second husband.
Congrats.
And I was able, thank you, I was able to really take that love that I felt from God, that unconditional love, and learn how to love my husband in the same way, to see him the way God sees him, to love him the way God loves him. And once I was able to make that shift within our marriage, for me, the marriage became effortless. So now it's like I can totally enjoy being married. I don't have to look at my husband and say, ugh, I wish I could fix that about him or tweak this about him. It's like, no, he's fine the way he is, and anything that he's unhappy about, that's between him and God. They can work it out together. I need to stay out of that and just love him the way he is.
Exactly. That's beautiful. That's total unconditional love.
Oh, it is. And I have to say, honestly, Mia, I haven't mastered it 100%. There are times when I find myself
Who has?
looking back into the past, and then I get miserable and upset, and I go, well, it's your own fault, Janet.
Right. And that's wonderful you brought that up, because people, and part of living in the divine and that gracious feeling is not judging ourselves or others. We can observe, but people do judge. They're like, well, you are spiritual, and you are a leader, and you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do that. Sorry, we're spirit in human bodies, and we are always, until the day we leave this planet, we will always be working on our stuff. Otherwise, we may be ahead of others at times, but we're always going to be working on it. Otherwise, we would ascend.
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
one day when our body and everything else is gone and you can't find us, maybe we ascend. I'm not sure if I want to ascend, but anyways. So what's the second most powerful?
The second defining moment was one day my mother had sent me a prayer in the mail. And it was a prayer of Mother Teresa. And a lot of people aren't familiar with this prayer, but it's just beautiful, but it's really powerful. And it talks about how people behave, how sometimes people are illogical and unreasonable, but we have to forgive them anyway. And sometimes people are jealous of us and they're cruel, but we need to succeed at what we're doing anyway. So she goes through all of these different examples. And in the final line of the prayer, it says, you see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It never was between you and them anyway. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because what I realized is that human beings are very competitive by nature. You know, and I'm not just talking about in typical, competitive sports or things like that. Right. But I'm talking about just in life in general, who's
getting the mate, getting the right, exactly.
All of that kind of stuff, whose hair looks better, whose kid is smarter. So, and we're very competitive because we live in such a way that we say we don't care what other people think about us, but we really do. So we're always trying to prove ourselves, not just to ourselves, but to the other person. When I read this prayer, I realized that my life really isn't about my relationships with other people. My life really is about my relationship with God. So the more I work on perfecting that, the less I concern myself with the external here in this life. That has less of an effect on me. I can observe it, I can learn from it, but it doesn't negatively impact me. So what happened was I shifted the way I lived my life. It wasn't about me getting what I need in my marriage or me being successful with my career. Am I living my life in a way that pleases God? Because that became more important to me than anything. And that's one of the questions that I pose in my book, The Great Truth. I said, it's a 4-word question. If you ask yourself this question, anytime you're about to make a decision, you will always get the right answer. Does this please God? It's that simple. So now my life became about my relationship with God. And once you align with the divine, then everything in this life just has a way of working itself out. And it really allows you to live effortlessly. And it's only, again, when I disconnect from the divine that I end up struggling and that I have to remind myself and put myself back on track. But it just shifted the whole way that I look at my relationships and my career and everything that I do in life.
Right. It's beautiful. It's funny because I just had this thought that if I could share, that came through my mind. I've always been a metaphysician. I was raised in a religion that was metaphysical in Christian Science. And I had many healings. I relied on God. I knew my true alliance when my mother, who it seemed like skipped a gene for some reason, she was not like my grandmother and the rest of us. She was quite abusive. I would always say to God, you're my true father, mother, and I'd find such amazing comfort. So I've always been of a metaphysical type since I was little. And I still have always had to realign myself with with God. And always, we are in relationships where our spouse, like you were talking about when you got a divorce, me too. When I got a divorce, even before, my whole world fell apart, and that's why we moved apart. I was in the shower I started reading Conversations with God. I have my, and I've read it before, but I have my clients read it. It's part of our coursework. And because it really teaches you how to align to the divine. And so I thought, I'm going to reread it because I have them do it. I'm going to do it too. And I do that every so often. I do the coursework so that I'm fresh up with them. Okay. And I was going through a relationship where I wasn't quite happy, but I had just read about listening to the right voices in our head. We've got them all over, just talking, chatting. And so I said something about the person that I was with in my head, and I was getting into the shower, and, we talk to ourselves all the time. And instantly I said, now, was that God, a God voice, or was that not? And I said, no, it wasn't. That was not nice. And so it was so funny because instantly I heard a ha, 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 a man's voice, deep, ha, 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 ha. You're, laughing. You're finally listening again. And I just broke down in the shower, just bawled like a baby. It's like, thank you, Father.
I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah, it was totally amazing, and it shifted me so greatly that I've never forgotten that. And I just have to go back to my relationship to the divine. And what am I saying? What am I thinking? What am I allowing in? What am I expressing out? So anyways, that was just reminded me what you said was part of that.
Wow, I love that. And you know what? You don't ever forget those moments with the divine.
Exactly.
They're so powerful. They literally become incorporated, I believe, in every cell of our being, that you literally can't ever not remember them.
Right. And this also was after 2 months. I go every year for 2 months. I take a hiatus and I meditate and pray. And so this was like towards the end of that. And it's like I was just flying, baby. So
I'll bet.
Yeah. So what was your third defining moment?
Third defining moment, and I don't recall what order these came in, with the exception of the first one. My youngest daughter had not been in my life for 5.5 years, and she had a child. And so when she came back, he was 6.5 years old. So I hadn't seen him since he was an infant. He didn't know who I was. And when he turned 7 years old, in the Catholic Church, you make your first communion. So our church is a very large parish, and for the first time in many years, both sides of the family were going to be together, my ex's side and my side. And my ex is not particularly fond of me, let me put it that way. So my daughter had it figured out that I would be sitting at one end of the pew and her father would be all the way down at the other. Long story short, I kept getting moved down closer and closer to the other end. And by the time Mass began, he and I were literally sitting hip to hip.
Oh, how funny.
That's okay. I'm okay with this. I know he's not. But at one point in the Catholic Mass, we're all asked to not to join hands, we're all asked to turn to those around us and offer one another the sign of peace. So I know that this is coming. And ordinarily, if it's family or friends, you can hug them or give them a kiss. If it's a stranger, you usually just extend your hand and shake their hand. So I know that this is coming, so I'm praying to God. I'm saying, all right, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I ignore him? Do I give him a hug? Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not kidding you, Mia. In my right ear, I hear God say to me, why would I want you to treat him any differently than you treat everybody else? Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, good answer. What are you going to do? Give me a stupid answer?
Yeah.
So it came time for the sign of peace, and I turned around and I extended my hand and I shook his hand. I don't think he was too happy, but, he reciprocated. And then, so we got through that, and then a few minutes later, when we say the Our Father, now we all join hands and hold hands through the whole prayer. So once again, I turn to God and I say, well, what should I do this time? And God says to me, don't push it. So I just folded my hands in front of me and I recited the Our Father. So why was that a defining moment? Because again, what God reinforced to me was that I want you to treat all of my children exactly the same. You don't get to pick and choose, who you show love to or who you respect or who you are kind to. It doesn't matter who they are, what the nature of your relationship is, or how they have ever treated you. I want you to treat all of my children with the same dignity and respect that you afford to the ones that you love the most. And so again, that was such a shift in my life. And 31 years later, I can honestly tell you that I have always treated my ex-husband with dignity and respect. I have always been kind to him. I still love him in my heart. And so it has literally transformed. It removes all judgment, all animosity, all thoughts of revenge. It really allows you to be in the presence of someone who maybe has mistreated you, but be at peace with it. You feel perfectly okay with it.
That's really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I'm telling you, there are lessons that we have to learn in life, and we don't learn them the easy way.
Exactly.
We don't learn them when everything goes right. And it's moments like this that we don't necessarily pick and choose that really afford us the most personal and spiritual growth opportunities. So I'm always deeply, deeply grateful for them.
Everyone, it seems, is searching for happiness. They're seeking it. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, well, I did a random Google search one time. Actually a search on Amazon to see how many books were written about happiness, and there's over 15,000 of them.
Wow.
Everybody wants to be happy, and a lot of people will say, well, the purpose of life is to be happy. And I think that there's something so much more than happiness, because I think it can become a way of life. Like, I just choose to be a happy person. I get up every morning and I say, you know what, whatever I have to deal with today, I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to be grateful for the things that I have in life. But very often happiness is dependent upon who we're with or what we're doing or what the weather's like, or, there's so many external forces that can influence how we feel, even though internally we make the final decision. But I learned that there's something that's far more important than happiness, and that is being at peace. Coming to that place where you have so much inner peace inside of you that regardless of what's going on externally, that you are unaffected by that. You still deal with the same challenges that everybody else has to deal with, but you can do it from a place of serenity and just that sense of calm where you're just unaffected by all of the negativity around you. So for me, I want to be happy, but more than that, I want to be at peace. And that's something that, again, that I choose by maintaining my connection with the divine, because that is who the divine is. The divine is love and peace and generosity and kindness and understanding. So when you remain at one with the divine, then you are all those things as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's beautiful. And also, it seems that when we are in that direct alignment with our life, that things are so much smoother. There's a lot of chaos that we don't entertain because our vibration level changes.
Right.
And so as we rise our vibration level up towards the divine, those things just wipe away. Whether they're insignificant, we just don't see them, but it just seems that life changes to a more magnificent beauty.
Yeah, it does. And I think that in part, it really helps us to put things into perspective. So many of the things that we would become agitated about, it's like spending 60 seconds with God. Once you experience that unconditional love, you crave more. And once you experience inner peace, that's all you want. I had a client come to me maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, really had an intense problem with anger. And that's something that I really specialize in, is helping people to heal their anger and be at peace. So she came to me and she said, I'm losing all of my friends. She said, friends I've had since childhood because nobody can put up with me anymore. She said, everything ticks me off. So we did some work, and in a very, very short period of time, she began to let go of all of the nonsense that she was so upset about, and she found that place of inner peace. And we have kept in touch, even though she's no longer my client. We have kept in touch, and she said to me, Janet, she said, once you experience peace, you don't ever want to lose it. She said, and every once in a while, she said, I'll be out on the road and my road rage will kick in, and then I go, oh, no, that's not where I want to be. And I have to pull myself. And she said, sometimes I literally have to pull off the side of the road and calm myself down because I don't like that feeling anymore. I don't feel comfortable there.
Right.
And it's the same thing with peace. Once you experience it, it's like, well, all right, so, there's a crisis going on. Well, I'll get to it, but it's not going to rob me of my serenity.
Right. And that's the beauty of knowing how to align ourselves with the divine, is that we can just get out of that chaos at any chosen moment that we choose. Sometimes our ego says, no, not right now. Okay, then sometimes we have to live in it because we're going to learn from it.
Right.
And then we shift out.
What I've learned, too, is that anytime I'm in that state of chaos and drama and where I'm upset about something, I know that I'm creating that all on my own. That becomes a choice now. It's not something that's inflicted upon me. It's a decision that I make to temporarily disconnect from my source of serenity and go back into that ego mindset where everything becomes about me. Oh, how dare that person treat me that way, or why is this happening to me? And that's all self-created, so that the pain and suffering that we experience really is directly related to our connection with divine energy. When we stay in that place, and people say to me, well, how can you say that? I mean, if you lose your job, of course you're going to suffer. Well, if you lose your job, it's only a problem if you allow it to be. You can look at it as an opportunity. Well, God is rearranging things in my life. He has something else planned for me. I have faith. I know that I'll be okay. Maybe I can't live the lifestyle that I was accustomed to, but maybe I wasn't meant to live that lifestyle forever. Maybe there's a new lifestyle that I'm meant to experience at this time in my life. So all pain and suffering is self-imposed, which is great, because then you can choose it or not choose it.
That is the beauty. That is the beauty. Yeah. And let's briefly, before we get into your free gift, let's briefly talk about, we've talked so much about how to conquer fear and also aligning ourselves to the divine. Let's talk about when we are aligned to the divine, how we are really aligning ourselves to the awakening, which is part of what this summit is about.
Well, I think I'm not sure how you define the awakening. For me, it means coming to a new awareness of who I am, who the divine is, what the purpose and meaning of life is, and the nature of our relationships. Very often I ask people, well, what will you put here for? What do you think the purpose of life is? And some people will say, well, I haven't figured that out yet. Some will tell me the purpose of their life is to be a teacher, to educate children. Somebody else might say, well, the purpose of my life is to be a good mother, or whatever. And I think the awakening for me has been the awareness that all of these things, while they all have value in my life, that's not the purpose of my existence. The purpose of my existence is for me to rediscover who I am, where I came from, which is from the divine. I am an extension of divine love, just encased in a physical body for, a certain period of time. And to really make that mental shift of how I live my life, that it is no longer about doing what I want, what makes me happy, or living to please others, or doing what others expect of me, but it really is about understanding that I am spirit, that I am a sacred child of God, and then being an extension of that divine love and that divine energy in this experience on earth. That with every human being that I encounter, in every word that I utter, in every choice that I make, I become a physical manifestation of divine energy.
That was beautifully stated.
Well, thank you.
Now,
if I may, I actually have a prayer that I include in The Great Truth, but it's a prayer that I wrote and I recite it every day that really helps me to stay focused on the awakening. And if I may, I'd like to just recite that.
Please do.
Now. Dear Lord, no, I forgot the prayer. Now I'm having mental. I got it. I am a physical manifestation of your presence in this world. Let all who know me come to know you through me. Help me to live my life every day in a way that pleases you. For you alone are my Lord. You alone are my God. You alone are my Savior. Amen. And that's my prayer.
That's wonderful. Sweet. Very, very wonderful. Thank you. Now share with us your free gift, which is your book.
Yes! Yes! My book, let me tell you the full title of the book. It's called The Great Truth, Shattering Life's Most Insidious Lies That Sabotage Your Happiness, along with the revelation of life's sole purpose. And much of what we talked about today comes directly from The Great Truth, but I would like to offer that as a free gift because it's a very, very powerful book. It's very simple to read, and it really has the potential to change lives, to give people the opportunity to experience the peace and the joy that I've been able to experience in my life. So that is my free gift to you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Wow.
You're welcome.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with? Some thoughts?
Wow, I think I shared a lot.
You have, but sometimes there's just one last thing you might want to say.
I probably the way I would like to conclude our conversation today is just to remember that final line of the prayer of Mother Teresa, that life is not about our relationships with one another. It's not about what we do professionally. It's not even about ourselves. Life is always about developing our relationship with God. Everything that we do is always has to do with our relationship with the Creator.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also like to state, because this is probably one of the first shows that'll be airing, that God, we call different cultures, religions, countries, call God by different names.
Sure.
But the divine energy is the divine energy.
Yes.
So if you want to call it Allah, Jehovah, God, whatever, it's all the same.
It is.
And so when we realize that, that's what truly brings about love and peace, because we stop the fighting of, all these zones and all these, we're not separate, we're all one. And the reason I'm bringing it up with this segment is I had no idea that you were Catholic. Okay. I just knew you as an amazingly spiritual woman. So I love that you embrace inside and outside of religion. I love that
yes, I do. Very much
embrace
so.
it all. So thank you. That was quite a treat and quite an honor, because it's helped me to realize I've worked with a lot of spiritual religious people and some reverends and stuff on different summits, and this has really, really confirmed again that it doesn't matter what the title is.
No, not at all.
It's our heart, our being, our whatever. It's our heart, our being, our soul, our spirit in alignment to the divine. So this was really beautiful. Thank you so much, Janet.
My pleasure, Mia. I thoroughly enjoyed our time together.
Me too. It was lovely. And thank you all, and we'll see you all in the next segment. Bye.
Bye-bye.